Welcome to The Big Debate. My name is Joel Senyonyi. Tonight on The Big Debate, we seek to understand how the media is faring in as far as covering the election and the campaigns is concerned. There's been a couple of things here and there, and there is a report. Some might think it's an indictment to some media houses. Other media houses might pat themselves on the back, maybe a little bit. But that's coming up on The Big Debate. All right, I'll introduce my guests for tonight. My immediate left is Moles Seguruligamba. He's from ACME. He's the program manager there. The people that outed this report, he'll tell us a bit about that. Good evening, Moles.
Good evening, Joel.
We also have a colleague, a senior colleague at that, Haruna Kanabi. He's from the Independent Media Council of Uganda. Good evening.
Good evening, Joel, and good evening, viewers.
All right, I must say that we should have had a representative from the NRM, the deputy spokesperson of the NRM task force, Mary Mutesi, but as of a few minutes ago, she told us, I cannot make it finally, but that's all right, we'll carry on. Let's begin by taking a look at this clip.
Now, some of these groups like Monitor and the NTV, they don't know that there is God. They just tell lies, they think they are the end of the world, but God is there looking, you wait.
Better call your money. Something you have to sort out. NTV, EPU, NTV, no. Call your management. They will tell you what to do. He didn't inform you that he suspended you. They did.
The information that I'm getting is to the effect that you've set conditions that are not fair in terms of your coverage, because you are aware we have a drum and it was brought to give a certain quality of coverage which we want. But looks like you don't want to get footages from that one, something that may not be in our favor in terms of the quality of coverage that we want for our rallies.
The media are free to operate by law and practice.
There you are. It's been an eventful coverage of the campaign season, so we seek to understand to, in one way or another, put the spotlight on we, the media, and find out how we are doing. Let me begin with Haruna, who has been in the media for plenty of years. Haruna, we have had not one, not two, not three candidates complain, and not just about us, really. We're talking about the media generally. And each time you hear them say, look, you're not giving me fair coverage, you're giving more coverage to the other one, and so on. They complain to media, television, they complain to radio stations, they complain to print media. Do you think it is warranted, or are they maybe trying to manipulate us so that we can get to do what they want?
Of course, when you want something from someone, you can begin from the negative point of view. Say, you are not giving me this, you are not giving me this. And at the end of the day, you unduly influence that person. And I think that's where most of these politicians are coming from. They have a feeling that they should take the leopard's share.
The leopard?
When we were to use the new terminology, now we have our over coverage. But all that said and done, I think the media has improved a lot in terms of coverage, although it's also facing a lot of undue influence, intimidation, and obstruction, which shouldn't be the case in a free and democratic society, and especially in a genuine and democratic electoral process. Because when we talk of a genuine and a democratic electoral process, we are talking of a process where everybody is free to talk, where everybody is free to assemble without fear, and movement without being obstructed. And the media playing a role of listening to these guys, conveying the message to the public, and allowing the public to assess the candidates and make a decision. an informed decision at the end of the day. We are also talking of a time where editorial independence is very, very critical, that no one should be directing which pictures to use, which statement to use, because at the end of the day you are going to get what I call tilted information. And the person who is interested in that is the candidate. He wants you to lose your independence, give a package that he himself or herself has packaged the way he wants, and you are not supposed to interrogate it. And at the end of the day, when you don't do that, you question, you interrogate the information, then at the end of the day, you are accused of not being fair and giving good coverage to that particular candidate.
Mollis, do you think he's just putting up a defensive? Because he's been in the media for a while. He is a colleague, so expectedly he will defend. We'll get to the report that you have released as ACME. But do you think he's being defensive, or is what he's saying holding water?
I think by and large, media should be free to operate in a manner that allows them to freely access all points of information, collect and gather that information, report it freely without any hindrance, whether by influence of owners, whether by influence of the state, or corporate influence, you know. So I think in the electoral process, the campaigns as it is, it depends on the way the candidates and the political parties are marketing their agenda to the electorate out there. So what you have to offer beyond the budgets and other, you know, what are you telling the people? So I think if the candidates, the parties concentrated on their message and their engagement with the electorate, they would suffer no, you know, challenges in getting the kind of coverage that is suitable for their message.
As ACME, you have released the report today, and I need to let the viewers know, ACME is Alliance for Election Campaign Financing Monitoring. You've released the report.
No. African Center for Media Excellence.
No, this is another report altogether. Pardon me, African Center for Media Excellence. Alliance for Election Campaign Finance Monitoring did release a report of its own. We'll talk a bit about that as time does allow. So as African Center for Media Excellence, you have released the report. I'll just put out, mention a few pointers here. Of course, UBC, the national broadcaster, gives 78.9% of airtime to the incumbent. And then a couple of other things do stand out. Front page coverage by newspapers in December. Candidate Museveni gets 39.6%, candidate Mbabazi gets 36.1%, candidate Besigye gets 20.8%. Television, candidate Museveni gets 53%, candidate Besigye gets 20.2%, candidate Mbabazi gets 18.9%. A couple of other things. Harun, I'd like to think you have looked at some of these things. What worries you, and what do you think is good? Let's begin with the good. What do you find good about this report?
The good about this report is that it's a self-reflection on the media itself, to understand where they are really doing good, where they are doing bad, because you have only talked at the aspect of percentages in terms of candidates. But the report goes further to look at how deep is the media also in interrogating issues raised by the candidates. How many times have they also given the other voices a platform to express what they want? When you read that report, you'll be surprised that when it comes to interrogating the policies, the statements of different candidates, the media is doing very badly, although you wanted me to start on the good side. But when it comes to what we call conventional reporting, candidate so-and-so was in this place, he said so-and-so, then there, the media has done very well in terms of parroting what the candidate is saying and conveying it to the candidates. But when it comes to questioning whether what is being said is really true, is it doable, that side, no.
We are performing this, Molly. And a quick one to you, Haruna, before I get back to Molly's. Is it out of fear? Do you think media houses are timorous? They feel, if I dig deep, one or two things might happen. I could get closed, I don't know, something could happen to me as a media house or the individual reporters.
It's a combination of many factors, but fear is one of them. Because as I told you earlier, that we have had a lot of undue influence, intimidation from different institutions, especially the institution of the office of the Resident District Commissioner. They have done very well in that aspect, and I doubt whether they can deny that. The police has also done very well on that aspect. The regulator is always keen to observe what is being said. But that aside, I think internally we also have our own weaknesses, that how often do we try to question? Do we understand what these candidates are talking about, so that we are able to ask the right questions? That aside, do we have the resources also to have the right people in our media houses also to interrogate some of these issues? So these are some of the factors, I would say, when it comes to going deeper into these matters.
Mole, some journalists and some media houses have punched holes in this your report. You outed one sometime last year, and late last year that is, and here is another, and some were quick to dismiss it. They feel you're not being as fair to them. They are trying their very best, at least so they think. What's the modus operandi? How do you go about coming up with these statistics? This is what happens, how, and so on. How do you come up with this?
Yeah, in terms of election reporting, when the African Center set out to monitor media coverage of the elections, we designed methodology that was agreed upon, validated at a public workshop where we invited media. We also, as a benchmark, revised election reporting guidelines with the support, again, of the media houses and media owners, which were also agreed upon. So in terms of teaming, I think we brought to bear on the research the kind of rigor in team formation and the methods and approach. We are using content analysis to collect the data and analyze it. Our sample is purposive and largely representative of FM radio across the country. We are monitoring data from 33 FM stations, 5 TV stations, 9 newspapers. So when doing the analysis of what is reported, we depend on what the media report. So we do not, it's not conjecture, you know. So we review what you report and using a coding sheet on aspects that are generic, from simple things like the date, name of the publication, to more nuanced qualitative aspects of the content, such as a reporting approach, you know. So you, just like Haruna stated, the most common approach to reporting is conventional. So why are journalists doing that? The data is revealing that it is consistent. Why aren't journalists using alternative approaches, investigation? What happened to that? Enterprise reporting, you know? So all we are doing is sharing this data with the media houses, with the individual journalists, to inform the editorials, you know, that here is where we are doing good. For example, in our report, we've consistently revealed that we recognize the volume of space accorded to election reporting, especially online, you know. When you look at the New Vision, they have a dedicated platform online. The Daily Monitor has a dedicated platform online. Social media is being used by NTV and other channels, you know. So there's due recognition of the good that the media is doing. But also, we are not shying away, relying on our data to say that, look, why aren't you sourcing women voices in your reporting. Consistently, media has not employed women sources at more than 18% since we started tracking. And then we've noted, and we were also delighted that as part of these reports, the people in eastern Uganda, through the regional newspaper there, and in northern Uganda, women were the most sourced in this December report. Again, there's also a revelation that Orumuri did not approach women for opinion on the elections. 100%.
Very disturbing, but we are faring not so bad. At least we have a female anchor, my colleague Sheila here, whom we'll get back to in a bit. Aruna, there was a time...
It's not about female anchors, it's
well,
about
of course
female
not.
as source
Certainly.
of information.
Absolutely. Haruna, there was a time when brown envelopes were slowly but surely eating away at the moral fiber of journalism. Now, this that I was quick to mention, Alliance for Election Campaign Financing Monitoring, they did release a report that had some interesting revelations. Yeah, journalists covering the NRM, for example, the NRM candidate, on a daily getting 150,000 shillings, candidate Mbabazi 40,000, candidate Besigye and others less or nothing at all. I wish actually Mary Mutesi was here from the NRM. Unfortunately, she pulled out last minute to say one or two things about this. But how bad is it today? It used to be, something to talk quite a bit about previously. Is it still a monkey on our shoulders?
Definitely, and I was really shocked when the report came out and revealed that reporters who are following some of these candidates, they are paid to do the work. Maybe these are some of the challenges we are facing, and that's why I say this report is a self-reflection. And it leads us to another question. Why are we seeing more conventional reporting? If I have paid you, what do you expect me to do? I will convey your message the way you have said it. So I become more of an advertiser than a reporter, than a journalist who is supposed to interrogate you and also to look for other sources of information to back it up. So it is very dangerous, and I want to call upon my colleagues to desist from this kind of behavior. I know we have challenges within our media houses that there isn't enough, but that's the undue influence. We are not going to get proper information if the source is subsidizing, is paying. In fact, it's not even it's paying the reporter. So that means that whoever wants to be covered, and that report reveals that Museveni is covered more than any other candidate consistently. This is the fourth report coming out, and consistently we have seen that candidate Museveni, takes the lion's share.
Is it really because of this money, or, for goodness sake, he's the incumbent, he's the president of the Republic of Uganda?
Definitely, but with this new revelation that those who cover him are heavily funded, they are facilitated, then definitely I don't want to rule out the influence. And that is very dangerous for the profession. It's unethical, and it's something we should condone. We should not really support it in any way.
Moles, do you cite unfairness when you look at, coverage? For example, what is on the screen there that is spaced to candidates by newspapers? Clearly, candidate Museveni takes the lion's share. When it gets to radio, television, he does take the lion's share. The leopard share. Haruna does say, there you are. Do you cite unfairness? Do you think maybe it's intimidation, or maybe some surreptitious happenings, or like I said earlier on, he is the president of this country, so wherever he goes there is interest, because you see he's fused into one. He's candidate Museveni, but he's President Yoweri Museveni too. So without a doubt, he will get covered regardless.
Yeah, you see, there is the challenge for those competing with him that the law recognizes the bonus of the incumbency. Some facilities are accorded to the president naturally, such as the presidential press unit, continue to be used, to report on the president as a candidate in an election. That said, there are many other factors that contribute to the kind of attention that the president may be getting. But again, also in terms of the law, in our monitoring, we recognize that ownership plays a key role.
Ownership of these media houses.
Media houses.
And what's on screen there, that is television coverage given to candidates by statistics and all.
Exactly. So in terms of ownership, you find that the public broadcaster, under the law, is mandated to accord all the candidates in the election equal time, equal coverage, you know, reporting about them. You know, it is not a choice. You know, so UBC as a public broadcaster has no reason really, you know, not to report on all the candidates. It gives candidate
Museveni 78.9% according to your report.
Yes, exactly. That's what that is what we are observing. But we are also conducting key informant interviews, you know, to find out why is media behaving or manifesting itself, media coverage that is, manifesting itself the way it is. And part of the reasons, for example, talking to key informants at UBC was that their budget was slashed to just quarter of what they should have been availed to be able to report the election fairly. So they are depending on the PPU to collect and report the information. So if the rest of the candidates cannot be able to do that, there are limitations generally, definitely, to what the public broadcaster will report.
All right, an interesting one there. Issues versus personalities by television. That's what is on the screen there. I like what I see for the middle. NTV seems to be doing a fairly good job in regard to covering issues and all. Haruna, how do we, because you see, like Moles does mention, especially upcountry radio stations, for example, they are owned by politicians, many of them leaning to the NRM. How do these stations, the staff especially, get to extricate themselves from ownership to get to do their, job, their professional job? It can be a tightrope to walk.
This is what I talked about, independence, editorial independence. Because what we have to interrogate these radio stations, apart from the facilities they have at their disposal. Because you are talking of people who go out, they have to buy their own recorders in some of these radio stations. Maybe you have to provide transport for yourself. So at the end of the day, you find Brigadier, the retired Tumukunde, along the way is willing to facilitate you to cover his candidate. Maybe he's also willing to provide something. So at the end of the day, you get embedded in the system because your station has no capacity to facilitate you, to make you an independent journalist. So that is one aspect. Number two, we are looking at guys who own stations, not only politicians, they are also business guys. They want to get a profit. And the way business is conducted in Uganda is that when you are assumed to be anti, anti means that providing a debate like this one and talk candidly about governance issues, then that means we are not going to do business with you. So the top guy has to think about that. Number three, if I'm a politician, definitely I would want to use my radio not as something that is going to be of public interest, that provide public knowledge, but something which I use to win over support, blocking other candidates from accessing it. In some years back, I did a survey as we approached elections. And I was surprised in West Nile region, there was a radio, they were offering talk shows at a fee. It was 200,000 and it was raised to 1.2 million during the election period. And the intention was very easy. Block out all your opponents. For you can use the space. They don't have the money to pay. And at the end of the day, the voice is curtailed.
Moles, maybe these are things you need to begin covering in some of your reports. Yes, you anecdote where it is that we are doing good and what we are doing bad, but also some of these challenges, we don't quite hear them.
Yes, as a matter of fact, our data, having analyzed it, speaks volumes about what's going on. As such, penultimately, when all the research is done, we are undertaking key informant interviews. We are also corroborating our findings with partners under the Citizens Election Observation Network, who have deployed long-term observers. They are monitoring access to radio stations, to media houses upcountry. We want to know from the editors, why are they not reporting fairly where they are not?
Critical question. Hopefully it gets answered. I have 30 seconds to end this, Haruna.
Yeah,
there was that report that was released by Uganda Human Rights Watch that did say, that report, keep the people uninformed. Of course, a couple of things were raised there, but one critical one was how the state, for that matter, seems to be infringing on our rights as we, the fourth estate, making it difficult for us to report what needs to be reported on. How do we fight this? Very quickly.
Definitely. I think the way to fight back is to continue to be independent, try as much as we can, where it is possible. Yes, we don't want to die along the way, but I think there are times when some of us will have to be martyrs for the sake of independence of journalism in this country. But we have to stand firm, and we don't need really to be very defensive. And I want to thank ACME because, as I said earlier, this is a self-reflection. That, guys, for you are busy churning out information. So for them, they are busy looking at how you are churning it out and what you are churning out. Then they give you the percentages in terms of where you are biased, where you are not doing good, and it's something we have to seriously reflect on. But the key issue is that let us remain professional. Even where we meet challenges, I think that's where we are going to win over the public.
All right, let's remain professional and let's improve. That's very important. Moles and Haruna, thanks a bunch for joining us for the big debate.
Thank you very much.
All right, and that was tonight's big debate.